afternoon and welcome to the Midday News on 3FM. My name is Beatrice. The news is also live on Kesme 107.1 and across the world at 3news.com. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Ghana and several other African countries grapple with massive internet outages for the second day, with businesses and major installations impacted following undersea cable cut. Already, conversations are underway for Ghana to explore alternative internet sources to avert a total internet blackout in a crucial election year. Meanwhile, Parliament to hold Minister of Communications Ursula Owusu-Kuffour to brief the House over the challenge. In sports, Ghana Football Association reappoints former Black Stars coach Otto Addo as coach for senior soccer national team. We'll bring you some more. Thank you very much for joining us. A near standstill. That's the story of most businesses reliant on internet services as challenges with accessing data enters a second day. Banking halls, hospitals, the airport and delivery companies, big and small, are all grappling with the unprecedented phenomenon occasioned by fiber cuts in the ocean. According to the National Communications Authority, the nationwide problem is as a result of undersea cables responsible for carrying international traffic, suffering severe disruptions. Per the NCA, the challenge is also being experienced in other West African countries, with major parts of Europe, the Middle East and Asia all suffering disruptions. The authority, meanwhile, has been providing the following update in the last few hours, and that's about the impact of the outages. Ghana lost 1,596.6 gigabytes data capacity. Now, the update from the mobile networks or mobile network operators, it says, as a result of the outage, the mobile network operators have since implemented their service continuity plans as follows. MTN local caches are being used to provide minimal data services. For Telecel, it has currently activated 20 gigabytes on Africa Coast to Europe, that's SEE, and almost completed activation of an additional 30 GB PS to bring the total capacity to 50. AT indicated that the current capacity of 19.5 gigabytes available is sufficient to provide service for their customers. It is important to note that the outage is not peculiar to Ghana. Countries such as Nigeria, Côte d'Ivoire, Cameroon, and Portugal have all been impacted. The National Communications Authority is monitoring the situation and working with all stakeholders and service providers to ensure restoration of full services. So how is the situation and the effects like on businesses and the citizenry in general? Take a listen.
You know, our work is online. If you don't have internet, then Charlie, that's all. You won't even get a ride. So yesterday, zero. I didn't even get one seat because the network was very, very bad, very, very bad. So the internet has affected us very badly. So right now, I should have woke up around 6, but see, I just woke up and I'm cleaning my car because there's no network. You can't even go online. No one is calling you. You are not having any requests. So you just have to stay one place and wait.
Like yesterday, I scanned a document. I had to send it to the insurance people, but there was no internet. I couldn't send it. Receive emails. We couldn't read emails and all of that. We had to submit our claims. Now we submit our claims online. We no longer, print papers and take to the insurance. By click of buttons here, we just submit. Yesterday I couldn't submit.
You know that right now on the youth, we like watching football than bet. It's part of us now. So without the internet, you have to sleep or you have nothing to do. You just have to sleep. See, without the internet, I couldn't stick it, so I'll take it. Yeah.
And we heard some of you there telling us about the impact of this issue on you, the internet cut. Let's engage Ibrahim Abubakar. He's my colleague in the Ashanti region. Ibrahim, if you can hear me, we have heard from some people. Tell us about the overall impact where you are.
Well, Beatrice is very, very devastating. You know, now almost everybody rely on one form of internet or the other to transact business or operate his or your own activity. So you move to areas like Wayek where you see internet cafes or people checking results for the others. This morning you go there, the place is almost empty. People are just sitting there doing nothing because the internet is not working. You move to where electricity credit is being purchased, and the vendors are just sitting there. People have been in queue for hours. They are waiting for the internet connectivity to come back so that they will be able to buy it. So beginning today, so they restore it. I'm sure most people are using prepaid meters and have run out of electricity credit will have to sleep in darkness because there is no alternative way. And most people, like you heard the first guy, he's an Uber driver. So most of them have been grounded from yesterday to today. What they are doing is that because some of them have already established contacts with their customers, they are being called offline. They go and pick them up. Others who are just sitting there doing nothing, waiting for the internet to be restored so that they will be able to continue with their operations. And ATMs too, some are not working, bank transactions. So all spheres of life have been affected. I spoke with an IT consultant, Samuel Adumako, who was also worried, and he was talking about the fact that we rely so much on fiber optics rather than diversifying in other internet data options. Let's listen to him.
Honestly, it came as a surprise to me. This is the first time in history such incidents has ever happened. Multiple cables being disconnected. Honestly, I won't blame it on anyone. But I would say in the near future, we should look at possible means of connecting to the internet rather than relying solely on optical cables. We have a future in Wi-Fi, which would help us transmit data with the use of light rays. I believe in the near future, if we are looking at such an option for transmitting data, we are going to be on the safer side, other than relying on optical cables for transmitting data. Now, the impact of this event is so there that we've not even had a feel of the full effect of what is to happen. A typical example is ECG. Very soon, a lot of meters will go out of prepaid, which they will need to purchase light, and unfortunately for users, they won't be able to because these systems are fully integrated and they will need internet to do these purchases. So the effect on this, especially even on the banking sector, is so there.
There was an IT expert there speaking earlier to my colleague Ibrahim Abubakar. Ibrahim, just let me clarify something before you go. Yes, you talked about some ECG customers queuing to get electricity. When they are able to buy, are they even able to load?
That is the issue. You can't even buy it, not to talk about loading it, because the machine or system will have to identify or pick your card before. So there's no even an issue of loading it when you've not gotten the credit on the card. So so far I've not seen anyone who has gotten the credit and having difficulty in loading it, unless maybe that person may have purchased the credit maybe 2 days or a day before all these things. So it's having a huge toll, everything, especially even on health facilities. You know, now they have digitalized health facilities, folders, NHIS taking it and other things. So they are all feeling the brunt of it, and some fortunately have localized system that they are using it, but most of them are indeed feeling the brunt of these internet hitches.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim Abubakar, bringing us updates of the impact of this internet cut in the Ashanti region. Crosby Annan is in Accra. He's been monitoring situations for us as well. He joins us live on the phone. Crosby, what have you found so far?
Well, Beatrice, thanks for having me. So the impact of the internet blackout in the country has been there, affecting all sorts of life, all walks of life. If you go to the banks, for instance, with a few banks that I have visited, there are loads of customers who are queuing there. One, their mindset is that there's something going to happen or there's something happening, so they want their money. So it means that these bank operators have to convince them that it's all good, it's only an internet problem that they're having. It does not mean that their funds are under any kind of threat. That's one of them. The second is that a lot of them are having a fair idea of what the situation is, and they're going to the banks to make some withdrawals so they could put money on them. Because if we're running a cashless system and we're using the internet for all the bank transactions, the bank apps and all of that, and it's not working, it means they do not have money, either physical cash or online cash, because the internet is not working. So they are trooping to the banks to retrieve a lot of money. Now, what is also happening at the banks is they are also relying on these internet service providers to facilitate the system, and they are not able to work. So it means there's a little bit of a standoff there. If you visit the airport, for instance, there's some check-ins that are done online, some bookings that are done online, and these will require the internet service. At the moment, some travelers were frustrated, particularly yesterday, and some managed to barely escape through the skin of their teeth with a few network operators that are still having access to the internet, and they are able to let their customers enjoy the privilege now, as I will call it. So travelers are also bearing the brunt. A few have had to struggle to check in. A few have had to struggle to confirm their bookings and all of that. But so far, that is what the situation is looking like, Beatrice.
Thank you very much, Crosby Nobolanon, bringing us update from Accra. Parliament is equally concerned, and the House is seeking to drag the Minister for Communications onto the floor to brief the House on the national telephony and data outage affecting mobile phone users across the country. MP for North Tongue Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa made the application for the sector minister to be summoned. Listen.
On this very important matter of national security and what the government is doing to help restore law so that we can have access to the internet and our data sets, so that we can be more encompassing, so that when we come to Monday to attack persons and then we are not looking for other opportunities.
You heard the MP for North Tongue Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, and we do apologize for the poor quality of that sound. Duke Mesopoku is there in Parliament for us. He joins us live. Duke, what more can you tell us about this developing issue going into Parliament and the MPs having to discuss it?
I can tell you that after he spoke, 3 more members of Parliament raised the same concern. I'm talking about Aswansi Member of Parliament, the Honorable Mubarak Muntaka Mohammed, as well as the Honorable Member of Parliament for Tamale North, Al-Hassan Suhini, and Member of Parliament for Dom Kwabinya, Ajwa Safu. All of them essentially raising the concern about how important it is for the country's data networks not to suffer the kind of nationwide outage that has been seen in the last 24 hours. So the House, through the majority leader, has informed members of Parliament that on Monday, the sector minister, Madam Esla Usokufu, will be on the floor of Parliament to brief members of Parliament via a statement, and then after that respond to concerns that members of Parliament have in relation to this data outage.
Duke, but tell us, how is this whole outage affecting the work of Parliament itself as we speak?
Well, as you well may be aware, our Parliament is not fully hooked onto the e-system. The e-system has seen everything being electronic, so it's a mixture of the electronic and the manual. But the major aberration, I would say, is the fact that usually you would have Parliament streaming live on all platforms, on all social media, on some social media platforms. So you have Parliament on Facebook Live, you have Parliament on YouTube. But since yesterday, the activities of Parliament have not been streamed live on Facebook, and they have not been streamed live on YouTube. And this essentially can be attributed to the poverty of data and data bandwidth across the country being experienced due to the nationwide outage caused by some technical glitches in submarine cables, as we've been told by the National Communications Regulator.
Thank you very much. And that was Duke Mensopoku there reporting live from Parliament. We'll be speaking to a security analyst very shortly to bring you some more into this. But ahead of that, Kamal Dean, he is a marine expert. He's also been sharing his views with us. Let's listen to him. And then we will bring you some extra analysis from that security analyst we'll be speaking to shortly.
Disruption in submarine cables will affect a number of important things in life. They definitely will affect our financial system, our communication. They will affect our financial system. Our communication will be affected. Our safety and security surely affected.
And you have Kamal Dean. He is a marine expert. I'm joined by Mukhtar Mumuni Mukhtar, Executive Director, West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism. Good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, good afternoon to you and good afternoon to your listeners.
We have talked about the potential threats this could have, not just on our security, but on various areas of our lives. From where you sit, to what extent can this be?
Well, if you notice the significant dependence on the internet and cyber activities in terms of the economic activities as well as our social lives, yesterday highlights the significant level of damage and insecurity or anxiety that a blackout in terms of internet that could cause our society. And so clearly, if we were contemplating something like this on election day or election-related activity, it would be a significant factor that would determine whether we do that or not. And so clearly yesterday was a huge demonstration of the capacity or the tendency to cause anxiety and panic if we have a situation like this happen on election day or anything relating to elections.
In the midst of this, all we hear is cut, and there are theories as to how we got those fiber cables cut. There's the theory of the Houthis from Yemen. Already last week, there were some cuts of cables. They threatened to launch more attacks in the Red Sea. There are others who are also arguing that because of the attacks and the fact that ships have to divert in terms of their route, that could also have caused this cut that we're experiencing. How do these sources, as we talk about, how significant do they mean in terms of how we look at dealing with the problem?
Well, so far, we do not have confirmed, evidence or reports in terms of who must have been responsible for this, undersea cable cut. The Houthi rebels have come out clearly to deny that they are responsible for this cut. But of course, for some time now, they've been responsible for many insecurity in that, space, largely because as a response to what is happening in Gaza. What it takes is that clearly the internet, it's used also as a tool, and just like many other tools have been used as a tool for war, as a tool for terrorism, and as a tool for, ensuring deterrence when you're, involved in a situation like this. What it takes, unfortunately, is that it impacts on all of us globally. And as you see, especially in this part of the world, where we have very limited, options in terms of infrastructure to deal with the economic aspects of our lives as well as our social lives here. Irrespective of how this has happened, the important thing is if we, are able to assess the impact of this kind of thing on our economy and our lives, how can we move on? How can we handle something like that? If it were to happen on an important, occasion like elections, and that is something we have to, think about and start to analyze and see what it would mean for us if it were to happen within here.
Elections are some months away. We'll talk about that very briefly before we end our conversation. But at this moment, how vulnerable are we? Looking at where we are. We
are very, very vulnerable. We are very vulnerable in the sense that we have no options when something like this happens. It appears that there's a significant level of the population, especially young people and small-scale businesses. A lot of businesses are now online, and they depend significantly on revenues through online sources. And so when something happens like this, there's going to be significant loss of revenues. Globally, we are talking about over $9 billion, dollars in revenues that were lost last year as a result of internet shutdowns by several governments all over the world. And so if we are to happen here, we have very limited options, and we have to start thinking about mitigation measures when something like this happens in Ghana.
We have to think about mitigating measures. From your view, what can we do in the short term? You earlier mentioned elections. Which would be in the immediate term?
In the immediate term, we need to ensure that our agencies, in terms of the oversight agencies as well as agencies responsible for this, including the National Communications Authority and service providers, ensure that we have robust infrastructure that is able to withstand not just something like a shutdown, but also in terms of cyber. What we call cyber terrorists or individuals who may take over the space of critical infrastructure and cause harm to our society. So we need to do a lot of audits in terms of ensuring robust infrastructure to ensure that we build resilience against something like this, apart from external actions that we are facing, like in this case.
Do you think we can significantly do something ahead of December 7?
Yes, we have to. Yes, we can. We have capacity to ensure that we build a robust infrastructure that allows us to be able to have elections, any election activity or election-related activities online. But we need to also put in place mitigation measures when something like this happens to ensure that it does not mar the credibility of the elections. But if I were to advise in terms of the inclusion of, cyber-related or cyber platforms in dealing with the elections, we cannot entirely rely on cyber platforms in terms of our elections. We just saw what happened in Nigeria when there was significant chaos in terms of the elections, because they had sought to move everything onto online platforms, declaring results and counting processes. Unfortunately, that platform wasn't robust enough to ensure that there's free flow of information and that the platform was capable of, accommodating all the activities that they were meant to. And so I would not advise that we rely on the internet, rely on cyber platforms for our elections. If anything at all, it would be a combination of online platforms as well as, the manual way we have always done it.
All right, we'll have to end it here. Thank you very much, Mumuni Mukhtar, Executive Director, West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism. Thank you so much for speaking to us. And now to the power crisis, which keeps worsening in the past 1 week, impacting homes and businesses across the country. For small businesses, the power cuts portends an existential threat for them. Ashanti Regional Bureau Chief William Evans Inkum has been assessing the impact on some printing firms in the region and has joined me on the phone lines. William, how would you describe the level of effect?
Well, very dire, especially on businesses like printing press, who have been counting their losses and few who dare to even continue to operate in this, one would say, unusual moment, also will have to incur more costs in their operations. And that is even translating into implicit costs, of course, that will also be transferred to the final consumer. So that is the situation in the Ashanti region. In fact, I've been speaking with some of the operators within in the printing sector, and this is how they say.
Since, what do you call it, last week, I've not been working because of the lights out. The lights out spoiled the machine. They fixed it on Monday, and today that I'm working. So for the lights out, it's really disturbing.
Nana Kufuado, so one on from the timetable beba. Next said that say you said that say ye jumana man ni panwa. Next what to me bed and ababe fancy so she's a timetable my yen. She's a timetable my yen to me fenye jumano. Nye sika nye so from support on mine because he on mine in punto. And ye me konechi light system no. Moi.
Ebedru abato so a ye tell hu sa problem we na ya asem ne say nipa bi so na ese a almost sound margin because a basa no ye nim near coso de but abribia ye beto abani hu saade no.
You heard some operators of printing press in the Ashanti region asking authorities, they mentioned even the president, to fix the current power situation in that region for them. Earlier, you also heard our Ashanti Regional Bureau Chief William Evans Inkum bringing us a situational report from that region. Now, Otto Addo is back as head coach of Ghana after 2 years. He will be on the bench for the friendlies against Uganda and Nigeria. The GFA says that Addo will return to Germany after the friendlies and officially say goodbye to Dortmund and hand over. Dortmund have also confirmed they will part ways with Addo during the summer as he picks up the role of head coach of Ghana. Oreku Ampofo joins me in the studio. Oreku, second coming of Otto Addo, but is this a good decision by the GFA to bring him back?
Well, it's tricky because Otto Addo is still a young coach. He's not coached professionally outside the Ghana national team, so the first stint was his first ever job. He doesn't have the requisite experience to come in and steady a sinking ship that's the Black Stars, a team that hasn't won a game at the AFCON in the past 2 years. And so it's difficult to rationalize the decision to bring him back, especially when you're looking at the numbers from his first stint where he won just 4 games out of 12 and he drew 4 and then lost 4 as well. So it's one that a lot of Ghanaians are not too happy about. But at the end of the day, he has the job, and the GFA say that he performed significantly well and he stood out in the process that the search committee took embarked on to be able to get a new coach for the Black Stars.
So let me get you, if you say Ghanaians are not too happy about us in he coming back.
Yeah, coming, because the thing is that we've seen coaches come back. Milovan Rajevac, who led us to the quarterfinals of the World Cup in 2010, came back a couple of years ago and it was a disaster. The thing about second comings in football is that most of the times it doesn't go well, and there is no confidence from what he did in his first stint that he'll be able to replicate that. And I think that's where a lot of the frustration is coming from. Also because the Executive Council said that they looked at 500 coaches. They had 500 applications. And so if the coach that won out of all of this is one that is not a proven winner, doesn't have 15 years experience, those were the requirements that they put out, then what were the other 500 doing?
So if I hear your submission earlier, you also seems to be suggesting that the Black Stars is already a sinking ship, and so it's not entirely about who becomes the coach. The coach can only manage, quote unquote, the mess.
Yeah, but I think that's why the FA said they wanted an experienced coach, someone who understands the system and the realms of African football, because you want to be able to fast track your climb back to the top. So I don't think Otto Addo has that. He's a coach that from his first things he asked for time. And this time he would get time because he's in for 34 months with the option to extend for 24 more months. So he would have the time, but I don't know whether Ghanaians just have the patience, because we still want to go to the World Cup. We still want to go to the Africa Cup of Nations. So that's why it becomes tricky for.
But are the Stars ready to win for us?
Well, we'll see. We'll see in a couple of weeks' time when they play against Nigeria. It should be a very heated encounter between these two sides. So.
Second comings, you don't think that they are so great, but what kind of a big job awaits him?
I think right from the off, he needs to get going because the friendlies, he would have some slack. He can afford to not win those matches. But we go away to Bamako in a couple of months' time, and that is a must-win game because in the World Cup qualifiers, we've already lost to Comoros. And so if we do not beat Mali in Bamako, all of a sudden, there's a huge mountain to climb in the World Cup qualifiers. And so you would expect that there'll be a lot of pressure on him from the start.
We wait to see. Thank you very much, Oreku Ampofo, for bringing us the latest in the world of sports. And that's how we ended this year on 3FM. Our top stories: Ghana and several other African countries grapple with massive internet outages for the second day, with businesses and major installations impacted following undersea cable cut. Already conversations underway for Ghana to explore alternative internet sources to avert total internet blackout in a crucial election year. We brought you some analysis. Parliament to hold Minister of Communications Esla Owusu-Ekufo to brief the House over the challenge. My name is Beatrice. Thank you very much for joining us today. Log on to 3news.com for more news. Coming up next is Business Daily.
3FM 92.7.
Freezer, yeah, diaba. Adama for diaba. Freezer. Adama, akuafo se manhia. Adama. Metimoso, ma sorry. Kanino, obo mo ase a. Adu frefre no bia mienu miensa na se nan. Atele what media kwase. Adama for adwena akuafo ho hu se. Ye de aduro ba kopɛ. Ebe shifu ye bia. High technology. Akofo freezer ba. Wenku a. Eno anto benya 15 latest. No hwegum, what ya no hwegum. What the boss here? If you be any of us, you equity say, over Timono. Then we sure say, woman shown task here. Then what's enough for now? Freezer, power up a day. Freezer, Dacia, a person does so among Amoniaji. To me, me was sick, to me, but you may not do a some doom. Adama, with that Adama, no, Adama, you can't resist.
Ubenya Adama West Africa for a dream or baby bear a tongue cry on you. Afe Kayona Kenkai in Choya ever a dream.
3FM 92.7.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to Business Daily. Coming up this afternoon, International Monetary Fund cautions government, among other African countries, on need for review in fiscal policy measures amid external and domestic shocks from rising debt. Also, Ghana Association of Banks assures of expedited resolution of service disruption to financial institutions resulting from persistent nationwide internet breakdown. Plus, Cocoa Board suspends handing over of rehabilitated farms due to extreme weather conditions. We have details of these stories and more coming up in the next 10 minutes. Stay tuned. Thank you for your time. In our first story, the IMF is pressing on Ghana and other African countries the need to review their fiscal policy following repeated external and domestic shocks from rising debt vulnerabilities in their economies. The fund fears if the proposal is not considered, the region's public debt to GDP ratio will continue to trend upward, increasing by over 10 percentage points over the next 5 years. A situation it warns would crowd out private investment and, among other things, limit countries' ability to invest in human and physical capital. Director of Fiscal Affairs Department at the IMF, Victor Gaspar, spoke at the 12th African Fiscal Forum.
Asking the question, how to pay for it all? The question is relevant for all of the IMF membership, but it is particularly pressing for countries in sub-Saharan Africa with a large development spending demands. From mid-2022 to the end of 2023, no country from sub-Saharan Africa issued in Eurobond markets. That was a manifestation of ABE's great funding squeeze. That has changed in January and February, with a number of countries issuing significant amounts. But the coupon rates and yields in secondary markets, not shown, have stayed very high.
Well, that was Director of Fiscal Affairs Department at the International Monetary Fund, Victor Gaspar. Away from that, economist and lead researcher at GCB Capital, Courage Buti, has forecasted inflation to end 2024 at around 16.5%. His forecast comes on the back of Bank of Ghana's earlier prediction of the year-end inflation between 13% to 17%. Courage Buti believes, all other things being equal, inflation will continue to decline beyond March. He spoke to 3 Business.
Beyond March, we expect that disinflation trend to resume and a cold fall sharply from there on until end of year. I still maintain my end of year outlook of inflation around 16.5% and within a band of 50 basis points. The Bank of Ghana is looking at it between 13 and 17%. I think those are largely achievable barring any exogenous shocks that may come along the way. In the meantime, we've seen the cedi pressures are continuing. We've seen fuel prices rising at the pump. All these are potential risks to the inflation outlook, in addition to potential election overruns, if not mitigated. All of these could pose risk to inflation. But barring all of these shocks, I think we could get to the 16.5% levels by end of the year.
You have the voice of Courage Boutique economist and lead researcher at GCB Capital. In more stories, as the nationwide internet breakdown enters day 2, Ghana Association of Banks has notified customers of all banks about some communication network challenges that the financial institutions are facing. In a statement signed by the association's chief executive, John Ewa, the nationwide internet breakdown has affected service delivery, particularly online banking and services delivered through digital channels. John Ewa, on behalf of banks, apologized for the inconvenience caused, adding that his outfit will continue to work with partner internet providers to ensure expedited resolution to normal business and will continue to update customers on further developments. Now let's hear next from a section of Ghanaian public on the impact of the current nationwide internet breakdown on their businesses.
It has really affected us today because without internet, we cannot work. When you're trying to request, the rider cannot access the internet to order you, the driver. Or when you, the driver, also trying to open your driver's app, it doesn't really open because of the internet. Because without internet, as everyone is stands still at wherever he is.
It should be resolved tonight. Otherwise, we are going to run bankrupt, honestly, because
well, we'll bring you the details of that later. Sorry about the technical hitches. We'll go away from that. Prolonged dry harmattan conditions have compelled the Ghana Cocoa Board to suspend its planned handing over of thousands of newly rehabilitated cocoa farms. In a speech read for the chief executive, Joseph Boahin Edu, in February, the board announced its intention to deliver some 19,627 rehabilitated cocoa farms, covering an area of almost 18,101 hectares of the beneficiary cocoa farmers. Head of Public Affairs at Cocoa Board, Fifi Boafo, has been shedding more light on the impact of harmattan on cocoa production in an interview with 3 Business.
If you look at it critically, you realize that because of climate change, one, and then also the El Nino, the extent we are having it this year, at the time we're expecting the pores to develop, that is when you have this very strong harmattan wind. And that at that time, you don't have enough soil moisture to have the pores develop as you expected. Definitely, it will affect your production. These are things very difficult within a short period to humanly intervene to get it reversed. So it will have effect on your production. And that's really what the problem is at the moment. Already, the major part of the season is gone because the major part of the season starts from October, November, December, January, February. Then you are leaving the main season and then you move to the light crop season. So going forward, the target is to see how best we minimize the effect going into next season. Of course, with the El Nino, the effect is felt within a period and then you move over, right? So the expectation is that next year we'll not have such a strong harmattan like we're experiencing this year.
Fifi Boafo is head of public affairs at Cocoa Board, and that brings us to the end of Business Daily here on 3FM 92.7. For more business stories, kindly log onto our website on 3news.com. My name is Menu Afo. Do stay tuned. Black Rasta is on standby for Urban Blend.